The man in the empty house. There are some places that feel dead long before anyone actually dies inside them. For me, that place was the old house of my great-aunt Grace. A sagging, two-story structure at the very edge of a dying little town called Marlow Creek, a place barely hanging on in the shadow of forgotten highways, rusted signs, and empty fields. Marlow Creek wasn't marked on most maps anymore, and, honestly, maybe that was for the best. My family never talked much about Aunt Grace. She was one of those strange, distant relatives that somehow lived forever isolated. Stubborn, surrounded by stray cats, piles of newspapers, and a lifetime of junk nobody else wanted. By the time I turned 17, her health had collapsed. Hoarding sickness, memory fading, dangerous to live alone. My dad and I were the only ones who ever really checked on her house after she was moved to a nursing home in another county. At first, it felt like a chore. Then it started feeling like something else, something worse. The first time I noticed it, I didn't even know what was wrong. Little things. Drawers open that we always left shut. Cabinet doors ajar. A faint smell in the hallway that didn't belong, not the rot of old garbage or mold, but something sharper, sourer, like sweat or breath. I told myself I was imagining it. Marlow Creek could do that to you. Silence gets heavy out there. Real heavy. The kind that sits behind your ribs and waits. But as the weeks went on, those little things grew louder. Drawers rummaged through. Objects moved. One time, I found a neat little stack of old stuffed animals arranged perfectly along the stairs, one on each step like someone had lined them up to watch me walk past. Another time, dusty footprints tracked across the living room floor, leading nowhere. No broken windows, no forced doors, nothing missing. Just signs. Signs that someone was here. Someone careful. Someone patient. My dad thought maybe it was just the guy who used to rent Grace's basement years ago, a quiet loner named Lloyd, long gone by now. But I knew better. This didn't feel like the casual mess of someone grabbing their old things. This felt deliberate, structured, like whoever was doing this wanted to be seen, but not caught. I told my friends. They thought it was hilarious. The perfect urban legend. "Dude, you've got an actual house goblin," my friend Dean joked one afternoon, tossing a rock at an old sign outside Grace's property. But when I told them about the footprints, the placement of the stuffed animals, even Dean's grin faltered. "You ever stay the night there?" he asked. I hadn't. Not yet. But I would. Not because I wanted to. Because I had to know. Because this didn't feel like ghosts. Didn't feel like urban legend. It felt like something worse. Something human. Something that knew the house better than I ever would. And whoever it was, they weren't done. Not yet. We planned it like a joke. Me, Dean, and two of our friends, Sarah and Kevin. We called it ghost hunting. But none of us were laughing when the sun finally dropped behind the black tree line around Marlow Creek, leaving Aunt Grace's house sitting like a dead animal at the edge of nowhere. We brought sleeping bags, flashlights, even pizza like it was some kind of sleepover. But stepping inside that place after dark felt like walking straight into the lungs of something waiting to exhale. The house groaned, deep, old bones shifting in the cold. The air smelled thick, like wet cardboard and old clothes that had never truly dried. But underneath that, something else. Something faint. Salt, sweat, metal, the smell of alive things, where there shouldn't be any. We set up in the kitchen, backpacks against the wall, flashlights stacked near us. Kevin tried to break the tension with stupid jokes. Sarah sat with her knees pulled up, looking more nervous than I'd ever seen her. Dean kept glancing at the doorway to the hall like he expected something to crawl through it sideways. Hours passed. Nothing. Just creaks. Distant snaps from somewhere upstairs. But that's what old houses do, right? That's what we told ourselves. Until we left to walk the dogs. We took them around the block, 15, maybe 20 minutes at most. When we got back, the lamp in the far corner of the living room, a room packed so tightly with Aunt Grace's old junk you could barely move, was on. We had left nothing on. It was like walking back into someone else's scene. Deliberate. Mocking. To reach that lamp, whoever turned it on would have had to squeeze between leaning towers of cardboard dead furniture, boxes so unstable they shifted if you breathed wrong. Yet, no footprints, no disturbed dust, just the light, staring at us like an open eye. We didn't run. Not yet. We just went quiet. Real quiet. gathered in the kitchen, shut the door, sat low, and waited. If this was a prank, we'd wait them out. If it wasn't, we didn't know. Minutes passed like hours. Every little sound from the walls pressed harder against my skull. Something thumped upstairs. Footsteps. No rush, no fear. A rhythm. Step, pause, step. Dragging weight. Right above us, right over the kitchen. Sarah's whisper cut like glass. "We locked every door, right?" Dean nodded slowly. "Every window shut?" I nodded too. Kevin was staring at the ceiling, eyes huge. The footsteps stopped. Silence. Like someone realizing. We realized. That's when one of the dogs growled. Low. Real low. The kind of sound dogs only make when instinct takes over. No training, no noise, just pure ancient warning. And then we heard it. From the other side of the wall, a voice, not loud, not angry, just speaking. Like talking to someone we couldn't see, or maybe talking to us. 2 words. Soft. Hollow. Still here. None of us moved. None of us breathed. Those 2 words, still here, hung in the air like smoke, twisting through the stale breath of Aunt Grace's kitchen. Kevin mouthed, "Did you hear that?" but didn't dare speak out loud. We all heard it. Every syllable. Every grainy vibration through the thin kitchen wall. It wasn't a shout. It wasn't a threat. That's what made it so much worse. It was casual. Certain. Like whoever was in this house had been here far longer than us, and had no reason to hurry. Dean leaned forward, whispering barely above breath, "There's no way." Sarah's hands were shaking so hard I could hear the plastic of her water bottle crinkle without her even squeezing it. That sound from above started again. Footsteps, slow, measured, down the hallway, toward the stairs. Each step on old wood stretched longer than the last. Creak. Pause. Creak. Pause. Whoever was up there wasn't just walking. They were listening between steps, feeling for movement, judging distance. They knew exactly how much sound they were making and exactly how much they weren't. My skin felt too tight for my body. Adrenaline was messing with my hearing, making everything sharper. I could hear my own pulse pounding behind my eyes. Dean mouthed 1 word. Trap. And I knew what he meant. They wanted us to run, to bolt, to reveal where we were, to panic. But we didn't move. Not yet. Instead, slow as possible, I crawled over to the tiny kitchen window above the sink. The glass was foggy with age and grime, but I managed to peek out just enough to see the backyard. Empty, dead grass, collapsed fencing. No way someone got in through there tonight. And yet, more footsteps. Coming down the stairs now. Closer. Lower. Closer. Down into the front hallway, separated from us only by the thin wall and the old creaking door we'd shut behind us. And then, silence. Real silence. The kind that rings in your ears like pressure underwater. Kevin's whisper broke it. "We gotta get out." Dean shook his head. "If we open the door now, we didn't know. We didn't want to know." Another sound. Not footsteps this time. Closer. Right outside the kitchen door. Plastic scraping against wood. Soft. Wet. Like something being dragged. A bag? A tarp? It slid across the old floor slow enough to feel intentional. Purposeful. Then another sound. Tap. 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 3 soft knocks on the kitchen door. But not like a stranger knocking. Not asking for permission. Not even testing. It was telling us, "I'm here. Right here. Still here." Dean's face had gone completely pale. Sarah had tears running silently down her cheeks. Kevin was clutching his phone like it was the only thing holding him together. I didn't even feel real anymore. Then came the voice again, from right outside the door, calm, low, close enough to feel the words vibrate through the wood. "Won't leave if you don't." The voice was so close, so calm, that for a heartbeat, my brain refused to accept it was real. Real people don't sound like that. Real danger doesn't sound like that. But this wasn't someone breaking in. This was someone already home. Dean mouthed silently. "Back door." I nodded. Carefully, painfully slow, we started moving. Every movement felt like it echoed 100 miles in that choking silence. We didn't even dare to stand, just crawled low, like animals, over the cold, dirty linoleum toward the side door that led out into the collapsing backyard. Kevin reached it first. Tried the knob, locked, deadbolt. We'd locked everything when we arrived. Like idiots. Like people who didn't know they were locking themselves inside with something. Dean hissed through his teeth. "Key!" he mouthed. Shit. It was hanging like always by the main door, where he was. Trapped. Right outside the kitchen. That's when we heard him move again. Dragging footsteps. Slow. Back toward the front of the house. Toward the stairs. Toward the living room. We couldn't tell. Silence again. But heavier now. Coiled. Waiting. Dean made the call. "I'm going," he whispered. Nobody argued. Dean was the fastest. Smartest in a crisis. If anyone had a chance to grab the key, it was him. Without another word, he slipped out of the kitchen, crouched low, moving like a shadow. We stayed frozen. Every creak in the wood sounded like gunfire in my head. 30 seconds passed. 40. A minute. Then, thump. Loud. Hard. Dean crashing back into the kitchen, breathing ragged. "He blocked it!" Dean gasped. "Cemented stuff in front of the door." "What? What?" He moved furniture. Nailed shit. Piled it. I couldn't even see it before I stepped out. This wasn't random. This wasn't some homeless guy squatting quietly. This was a trap. A deliberate cage. And we had walked right into it. Kevin started to lose it. "We're gonna die in here." Sarah was sobbing now, shaking her head, rocking back and forth like if she stopped moving she might shatter completely. Then creak. The softest noise imaginable. From the attic access panel above us. My eyes snapped upward. Oh God. There was a small, square wooden hatch in the kitchen ceiling. It had never mattered before. Until now. Until we heard soft shifting right above it. Dust rained down, tiny flakes of it, falling like ash. Whoever was in this house, he was above us now. Watching, listening, waiting. Dean's face hardened. "We go now," he hissed. Window. We didn't argue. Kitchen window. Tiny. Half-rotted. But maybe big enough. Dean grabbed an old metal chair, jammed it beneath the window frame, and with a sharp grunt, forced it upward with both hands. Wood groaned. Glass shifted. Light from the dead backyard spilled through. Fresh air. Real. Possible. Kevin scrambled through first awkward and slow, tearing his jacket, but he got out. Sarah, next, I pushed her legs until she vanished into the darkness outside. Dean turned to me. "You last." I grabbed the edge. Started pulling myself up, and that's when I heard it. From right behind me. Low. Right at the base of my skull. A whisper so quiet, it barely existed. But I heard it. Close. Closer than anything had a right to be. "See you soon." We didn't stop running. We didn't look back. Not until the house was a distant, silent shadow behind us. Kevin was wheezing hard, bent over near the side of the road. Sarah was crying openly now, hands shaking so badly she dropped her phone twice trying to call her brother for a ride. Dean just stood there, staring back. Back at the old outline of Aunt Grace's house. Back at the empty windows. Except they didn't feel empty at all. They felt occupied. Like something inside was still standing in the shadows. Still watching. 20 minutes later, we were packed into Kevin's brother's truck, driving like hell toward town, away from Marlow Creek, away from that nightmare, away from the man in the ceiling. But that feeling stayed in my chest the whole ride home. This wasn't over. This wasn't finished. Not by a long shot. Morning came like nothing had happened. Gray, ordinary, heavy with fog. But it was real enough now that none of us could laugh this off anymore. Dean was the first to say it out loud. "We have to go back." Silence. Sarah shook her head immediately. "No way." But Dean looked at me. "They need to see it." "He meant the police." I nodded. Because deep down I knew whoever had been living in that house. He'd been there long before us. And he might still be there now. An hour later, 2 Marlow County Sheriff deputies followed us back to Aunt Grace's property. Everything looked the same. Too quiet, too perfect. Except for one thing. The front door, the one Dean tried to reach last night, was wide open. like nothing had ever blocked it, like no one had ever piled furniture against it. The deputies moved carefully inside, hands on weapons, calling out, but nothing answered them. No footsteps, no voice, no whisper. They cleared the ground floor first. Empty. Dead. Rotten food still sitting where Aunt Grace had left it months ago, but no sign of anyone else. Then the stairs. Every board creaked like bones. Room after room cleared. Empty. Until they reached the attic hatch. The same one that dust had fallen from. The same one he'd whispered through. Deputy Harris called out, "If you're up there, this is your last chance." Silence. They pulled it down, climbed, and what they found didn't belong in any world I knew. It was a nest. Not just random garbage like a squatter would leave. Organized, detailed, precise. A sleeping area built from old blankets, clothing, stacked high into a kind of cocoon. Next to it, rows of little objects. Our objects? Photos of Aunt Grace's house taken from angles no one else could have reached. Keys, a child's shoe, bottles of water, stolen mail, my name written on the corner of a ripped envelope, and drawings. Hundreds of them. Drawings of faces, eyes, smiley faces over and over and over again, sometimes with teeth, sometimes just hollow circles, sometimes names written beneath them. Names I recognized, names of my friends. Dean, Sarah, Kevin, me. And in the far corner of that attic space, a note, written in huge black marker across a torn sheet of wallpaper. Just 4 words, scrawled fast, ugly. "This is my house." For the next few days, Marlow Creek didn't feel like a dead town anymore. It felt like a hunting ground. Police cars came and went from Aunt Grace's property like clockwork, crime scene tape across the front porch, officers standing outside like guards at a crime museum, but it didn't feel like victory. It felt like defeat, because whoever he was gone. Like smoke, like he had never existed outside those walls at all. Deputy Harris sat us down in the station the next evening. He didn't sugarcoat it. "We don't know who he is." They ran fingerprints. Nothing. Checked nearby shelters. Nothing. Cross-checked missing persons. Nothing. No name. No identity. Not even a record of petty crime. This man was nobody, but he knew everything about us. From what they could tell, he'd been living inside Aunt Grace's house for months. Maybe longer. Signs were everywhere once they really looked. Tiny holes in the attic floor where he could peer down into the house. Old crawl spaces carved into the walls. Hidden gaps behind furniture. Loose boards arranged perfectly for silent movement. It wasn't random. It wasn't messy. It was methodical. Predator-level patience. He didn't just live there. He watched there. For a long, long time. Then the worst part. Deputy Harris pulled out a plastic evidence bag. Inside, a cheap burner phone. They found it taped to the underside of an old dresser upstairs. Hidden. Protected. When they powered it on, hundreds of photos. Taken from inside Aunt Grace's house. And outside. Photos of me. Dean. Sarah. Kevin. Most of them from behind bushes. From the attic window. From cracks in boarded-up walls. Even shots of us arriving that night. Walking up. Casually. Laughing. Clueless. But that wasn't the worst. Not by a long shot. The worst came from the text saved in that phone. Not sent. Not to anyone. Just written. As if for himself. Short notes. Log entries. Lines like, "Girl cries often. Boy always checks the same window. They leave food. Easy to take." And one that made my stomach turn to stone. Dated the same night we stayed over. They feel me now. He wanted us to know. He wanted to be felt. Not seen. Not caught. Just felt. Presence like fog. Fear like weight. Sarah refused to come back to Marlow Creek after that. Kevin's family moved within 2 months. Dean changed. Quieter. Always glancing behind him. Like he knew some fears don't leave just because the walls are empty. But it didn't end there. Not really. Because 2 weeks after the house was cleared, boarded up, locked down, forgotten, Deputy Harris called me one last time. And I'll never forget what he said. "You're not gonna like this." They found the same smiley faces. Spray, painted inside an old storage unit, 20 miles out of town. Stuff inside. Blankets. food wrappers. And one thing left in the middle of the floor. I didn't want to ask. I didn't want to know, but he told me anyway. A picture of me, taken from across the street, from outside my house. After that last call from Deputy Harris, sleep became a memory. I stayed at home, but it didn't feel like home anymore. It felt like glass walls. Like someone could be standing just beyond the line of streetlights. Quiet, still, camera in hand, waiting, watching. My house was a small one-story thing, old, creaking like everything else in Marlow Creek. It used to sound like comfort. Now every creak was a footstep. Every shadow was a shape. Every sound outside after midnight felt like a whisper I couldn't quite catch. Dean didn't even joke anymore. Sarah refused to answer calls about it. Kevin's family left in a hurry, barely saying goodbye. Me? I stayed. Stupid, exposed, vulnerable. A few nights after Harris's call, I did the dumbest thing I could do. I went back to Aunt Grace's house, alone. It wasn't bravery, it wasn't curiosity, it was obsession. Because there's a certain sickness that happens when fear sticks with you long enough, a hollow space inside you that needs answers more than it needs safety. I parked down the street, walked slow. Dead leaves cracked under my boots in the cold. The boards over Grace's front door looked untouched. Dust settled like snow over the old steps. But something was off. Not big, not obvious, just wrong. The smell, not rotting trash, not mold, but that same sharp metallic thing from the first time. Breath, skin, presence. I moved along the side of the house, past the overgrown hedges, to the backyard, and then I saw it. One of the attic windows shifted, not fully open, just cracked. Like whoever had been inside was smart enough to know the police would check the front, but not the back. My throat went dry, and yet I stepped closer. Beneath that window, near the old pile of wood scraps, something caught my eye. Fresh, clean, white paper, weighted down by a small stone. I crouched, looked, writing. Thick black marker, simple, ugly, straight from a nightmare. 4 words, same as before, but worse. Because this time, it wasn't a claim, it was a promise. You'll come back again. My chest tightened. The kind of fear that goes beyond shaking. It sinks, heavy, slow, permanent. Because I realized something then, something more terrifying than anything else that happened. This wasn't over because he said it was. This wouldn't end when I locked a door or moved away. It would end when he decided to stop playing. And people like him, people like that, they never really stop. They move, they wait, they watch, until they're ready to step through whatever wall you built around your life, and whisper in your ear, "Still here." Life after something like that isn't like the movies. There's no big arrest, no news headlines, no satisfying ending. He just disappeared, like smoke, like he was never really there to begin with. But every night, when I turned off the lights in my house, something stayed. Not outside, not in the attic. Inside me, something in the quiet. Something in the corners of every room. Something watching from the dark even when you know you're alone. The police searched for weeks. Deputy Harris called sometimes updates, dead ends, more frustration. "We're not going to catch him if he doesn't want to be caught," he told me once. Guys like him, they live between walls, in cracks, in places normal people stop looking. And I believed him. Months passed. Things got quieter. Normal life tried to come back. Tried. The old house was sold. The new owners ripped it apart. Concrete poured into the attic. New windows. New locks. Clean walls. A new house. For someone else. But not for me. Because then one night I saw him. Not in my house. Not in Grace's house. On the street. Plain as day. I was walking home late from the store. Empty road. Streetlight buzzing. And there he was. Standing at a bus stop. Not hiding. Not moving. Just standing. Watching me. like it was nothing, like he'd never left at all. My stomach dropped straight into the ground. My throat tightened. My hands shook as I reached for my phone. But deep down, I knew it wouldn't matter. Nobody would get here in time. Nobody could stop a ghost like him. Not when he didn't live in houses or rooms or attics. He lived in fear. My fear. We stared at each other. Longer than any normal person would. I didn't move. He didn't either. And then slow, he smiled. That awful, empty, skin-crawling smile. Too wide, too knowing. Like a man who already owned part of me. Like a man who knew I would never really leave him behind. None of us do. People who survive true fear, they always come back. Not in their bodies, in their minds, in the places they can't lock, in the memories they can't erase. Then, without a word, he turned, walked away, calm, unbothered, like someone who never needed to run, because he already knew he was still here, and always would be.